Today we're going to talk about lines in a plane and about slope and slope intercept and how to graph lines. We've looked at graphing lines with intercepts, but now let's talk about slope of a line. Now, if we look at the slope of a line, if we consider 2 points, if you think back to what slope is when you first learned about slope, the thing you want to always remember, always go back to, is the idea that slope is rise over run. That's what you always want to try to keep track of. So that when you look at 2 points and you say, well, what's the rise? How far up is it from one point to the next? And how far over the run is it? So this is our rise, and this is our run. Now, if we look at this, our rise is just the difference in our y's. y2 minus y1. Looks similar to the distance formula. Our run is the difference in the x's. x1, x2 minus x1. So my slope, my rise over run, is the difference of my y's, y2 minus y1, divided by the difference of my x's. You've seen this formula before. So, if we want to find the slope of the line or of 2 points, if we want to find the slope of a line, what we want to do is try to pick 2 points that are nice, that go right through the intersection, and then figure out, well, what's my rise? 1. What's my run? 3. So my slope is rise over run, be 1/3. Now, in a second we're going to talk about if a line is going down, the slope is negative. That way you don't have to worry about, is this, when I deal with slope, is it a rise up 1, down 1, left 3, right 3? It doesn't matter. All that matters is I know it's going down, it's got to be negative. So the second one, find my slope, now I have my formula. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Always put parentheses in, makes things work out better. So on the top, -1 minus 2 is a -3. On the bottom, negative and a negative become positive, so I get a -11/3. So that's how to find slope from a line or from 2 points. Now, one way we can kind of make sure we really understand this is to look at the formula. And so it says, find the value of x if the line through 5, 1 and x4 has a slope of -3/2. Well, let's look at our slope formula. y1 minus y2, either way, and then x minus 5. Let me go back and show you something here. I just said either way, doesn't matter, but let's go back and show you that. If I come back to this, and let's say I switch the order, and I do 2 minus -1, -5 minus 6. Notice what happens. The top now has the 2 negatives and becomes a +3, and the bottom becomes a -11. But I still get the same thing. So it doesn't really make a difference which point you make the first one or which point you make the second one. Now, going back to this, we know this is 3 over x minus 5. And this equals our slope of -3/2. Now, on one like this, you can see the top is 3 and 3. You may be able to just kind of guess and check to figure it out. But when you're unsure, the way we want to solve these as you get fraction answers and more difficult things is cross multiply. 3 times 2 is 6. and then negative 3 times x minus 5. So this is 6, negative 3x plus 15. If I subtract, I get negative 15, I get negative 9, minus 3x, so x is 3. And like I said, this is a nice whole number. You may have been able to figure 3 out right at the beginning, but on the harder ones, we're going to need to cross multiply. Let's talk about some facts about slope. Now, if we have a positive slope, that means a positive slope is our line is going up. Negative slope means the line is going down. Horizontal lines are in between those. If you think about it this way, a positive line is up, a negative line is down, so in the middle, horizontal, what's between a positive and a negative? 0. If we have a straight vertical line, a vertical line has no slope. It's not 0. We say it's undefined. It does not exist. Parallel lines. Two lines are parallel if they have the same slope. Parallel lines have the same slope. Now, perpendicular lines, there's a lot of different ways you can think about perpendicular lines. I will say it this way. Flip it and change the sign. Technically, it's the opposite of the reciprocal, but if I have a slope of 2/3, my perpendicular slope will be negative 3/2. Flip it, change the sign. Now, let's also review equations of lines. Slope-intercept form. This is our y equals mx plus b. Remember, m is the slope, b is the y-intercept. If we have a horizontal line, it's just y equals b. No x's. A vertical line is x equals a. No y's. General form, ax plus by. We do not do a lot in general form. Sometimes you're given things in general form. Remember that from Algebra 2? There's a whole thing about no fractions and whatever. We're not going to really do much with general form, but we'll be given things in general form sometimes, so just refresh your memory. The big ones we use are slope-intercept and point-slope. I like point-slope the most, and this is the way I write it. Y equals m x minus x1 plus y1. So when we want to write the equation of a line, we have to use these equations. So if we want to find the equation of a line, negative 3, 2, with a slope of 1/4. We can just use point slope. To find the equation of a line, you need two things. You need your slope and you need your point. So, if we just use point slope form, it's just plug and chug. Y equals 1/4 x minus negative 3 plus 2. We're done. We found the equation of a line. Now, some of you may remember doing this. Some of you may remember in the past, you would write it y equals mx plus b, you would put a 2 here, you would put a 1/4, you'd put a negative 3, and then you'd try to solve for b. So this would be 2 equals negative 3/4 plus b. You would add 3/4, which will be 2 3/4, which would be 11/4. And then you could take that b, you could go back and substitute it in, and then you could finally get your answer, y equals 1/4 x plus 11/4. I don't like to do it that way. Honestly, I will never do it that way. I like using point slope form. I write it down, there's my answer. If I gotta plug in my calculator, it's already solved for y. Now, if I truly need to write it into slope-intercept form, I can just multiply this out and get 1/4 x plus 3/4 plus 2. I'm already about this step over here. Y equals 1/4 x. Once again, I got to add 3/4 and 2 to get my 11/4. I like this way better on the left. Many times I'm going to stop right here at the box. I've written it in an equation. If it truly asks for slope-intercept form, I can do the 2 more steps to multiply it out and combine. I'm not going to ask you to write things in general form. We're not going to waste our time doing that. So, all these equations, all these questions now are going to ask us, find the equation of a line. And they're just going to give us something different. Here, they gave us a point and the slope. Now they're giving us 2 points. So, I need to find the slope. So my first step is, what's the slope? Well, I have 4 minus 2. 5 minus a negative 3. That's 2 over 8, which is 1/4. So now I have my slope and I have a point. And you notice, look at this slope, look at this point. That's the same question we just did. So you could use that point and you could write 1/4. We've already done this, x plus 3 plus 2. However, you could also have written this using the other point. Both points work. And if you did the math, you found this in slope-intercept form. Both of them give you the same slope-intercept form. But once again, unless I specifically say what is slope-intercept form, you don't need to do this. I will take this answer, or I will take this answer. There's no reason to go to slope-intercept form. So then we're given 2 points. Had to find the slope first. Find the equation of a line through negative 3, 2 that's perpendicular to 4x plus y equals 3. Well, we know perpendicular lines, the slope is you flip it and you change the sign. So here's my point. I need to find the slope. Well, I know it's got to be perpendicular to this line. So let's figure out what this slope is. So I'm going to put this line into slope-intercept form so I can determine my slope here is negative 4. So once I know that slope, what would my perpendicular slope be? You flip it, 1 over 4, change the sign, becomes a positive. And notice, I'm right back to the same question. So as we keep looking at these questions, we can change what's given. They give you a point and a slope. They give you 2 points. They give you a point and a line. But they all come down to asking the same thing. 1, what's the slope of the line? 2, find a point on the line. Once you find those 2 things, however the question may be worded, now you just put it into point slope. So all these problems, find the slope, find a point, write it in the line. Those are the 3 steps. All that's changing is what they're giving you to figure out the slope of the point. Now, one application here isn't known what's known as scatter plot, and we're finding a regression line for our data. So here are some world population numbers. And what I want to do is I want to graph this data. So I'm going to create a graph. And we want my x-axis, I'm going to start in 1980, and we're going to go to 2010. And my y's, this starts at, what, 4,000. And I'm going to go to, let's say, 8,000. And I'm going to go step of 500, somewhere like that. So let's do a graph of this, what's called a scatter plot. So put my points down. And in 1980, I was at roughly 4,500. 1985, 48. 1990, 52. 1995, 57. 2003, 63. 2004, 64. And you can see the population looks real close to being alive. So we can find an equation. So first we need to pick slope. We need to pick 2 points. I'm going to pick 2004 and 1980. I'm going to pick the 2 outside points. You could pick the 2 inside points. You want to pick 2 points. So this is my x. This is my y. So I have 6450 minus 4454 divide by 2004, 1980. So let me do this on the calculator. Figure out what our slope is. Just do our fraction. So negative 158.71. So our equation is y equals negative 1.58.71 x minus 1980 plus 4454. So there's our equation. Now, if we looked at 2 years, 2000 and 2010, and we wanted to predict what was the population in those years. Now, what we could do is I could take that equation and I could say negative 158.71. I want to look at 2000. So I'm going to plug 2000 in for x. And I didn't get the right answer. Wait a second. What's wrong? I just realized. I was not paying attention. Look at our slope. What's wrong with our slope? It's negative. So I must have typed something in the calculator wrong. Let me try that again. Minus, some of you might have caught that already. There we go. 83.17. So now, if we try to do this again, I just can go back and change my slope. We should have caught the negative slope initially. Hit enter. There we go. So we get 6,100. Now, the interesting thing is, in 2000, the actual population was 6,060. Pretty close. Pretty good estimate. If we wanted to find 2010, we could do the same thing, but we're just going to change this to 2010. And enter, and we get 69.50. If we look at what the actual answer was, 68.64. So we get a little bit different. We're just approximating our answers. This is called linear regression. We're just finding an equation that approximates what our answers are. All right, we are ready to do the homework. And this is the homework for lines in a plane.